Gemini, a powerful change is coming, and not everyone will understand the new you. Gemini, you were never meant to be understood by everyone, but this time, the misunderstanding might feel personal. Have you noticed how certain people around you seem unsettled by your recent clarity? How the more honest you become, the more uncomfortable others get. This isn't just a passing phase. It's a divine recalibration. Your dual nature, so often labeled as indecisive or scattered, is now becoming your most powerful compass. And the cosmic winds are shifting in your favor, but not everyone in your orbit is ready to accept the version of you that's no longer afraid to speak the truth. You're standing at a threshold where communication becomes transformation, and Mercury, your planetary ruler, is activating a rare alignment that's pushing your voice to the front lines of change. Not everyone in your life will support what you're about to say or who you're becoming, but you didn't come here to be silent. You came here to be seen, heard, and felt on a soul level. This is Esoteric Wisdom, and I'm Elizabeth, your guide through the unseen dimensions of astrology, psychology, and soul healing. If this message finds you, it's not an accident. Stay with me until the end of this journey. You're going to need every insight to navigate what's coming. And if something already stirs within your spirit, I invite you to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Gemini Unmasking. When the messenger becomes the message. Gemini, for so long, you've played the role of the observer, the connector, the translator between worlds. You've moved through social circles like a breeze through open windows, gathering stories, adapting, adjusting, always reading the room before revealing your truth. But what happens when the room no longer deserves your silence? Right now, Mercury, your celestial guardian, is not whispering. It's roaring. And its current dance with Pluto and Uranus is transforming your usual intellectual agility into something deeper, more visceral. This isn't about clever comebacks or charming deflections anymore. It's about raw truth. The kind that breaks masks, not just wears them. You've likely felt it already. A rising discomfort when you're with people who once felt safe. A strange boredom with conversations that go nowhere. Or perhaps you've noticed how your words are starting to land differently, more sharply, more powerfully. People flinch. Some push back. Others retreat. That's not your imagination. That's your energy changing. And with it, your role in the collective. Take Maria, a Gemini in her early 50s from Portland. For years, she was known as the easy one in her family, the one who smoothed over conflicts with humor, the peacemaker with a punchline. But recently, she couldn't stay silent anymore. At a family dinner, when a long-standing lie resurfaced, something ancient in her snapped. She didn't just correct it, she named it, and the room fell silent. It was the beginning of her liberation. And the beginning of others' discomfort. This is the paradox you're walking now. When you stop adjusting your truth to fit other people's comfort, you will be accused of changing, of being too much, of not who you used to be. And that's true. You're not. But what they're really reacting to, Gemini, is your decision to finally stop dimming your light for their ease. Mercury's influence isn't just mental now. It's cellular. Your nervous system is shedding old scripts. You may feel electric, restless, even unable to sleep. Your dreams might be louder, more vivid. Pay attention. They are not dreams. They are instructions. As your words sharpen, so does your perception. You're starting to see patterns you once laughed off. Realize betrayals you once justified. Name manipulations you once absorbed. And this clarity may feel heavy, lonely even, because for a sign so innately social, outgrowing people is a kind of death. But not everyone is meant to walk through this next portal with you. And that's the essence of this moment. The universe is not asking you to fight or explain. It's asking you to discern and release. Ask yourself now, who are you still talking to out of habit, not resonance? What spaces do you enter knowing you must shrink to stay? What conversations do you exit feeling emptier, not fuller? This is your Gemini unmasking. Your multidimensional self no longer fits into one role. You're not here to be predictable. You're here to be powerful. Not everyone will like the truth you carry, but that doesn't mean it should be silenced. In the days ahead, you may lose people, but you will not lose yourself. And that is sacred. You are not just the messenger anymore. You are the message. When you're ready, type Teep Chuang 2, and we'll continue your journey. Chapter 2. The Echo Chamber Shatters. Outgrowing the people who once defined you. Gemini, growth isn't always gentle. Sometimes it sounds like silence after laughter, like a room that once held joy, now echoing with distance. And what you're beginning to realize, perhaps for the first time, is that some of your closest relationships were built not on truth, but on convenience. On the version of you they could understand. On the version of you that never asked them to stretch. But now, you're stretching. And as Mercury transits your house of identity and communication, it's initiating a spiritual audit of your connections. No more small talk. No more pretending to care about what no longer nourishes your soul. What's rising within you is not rebellion, it's return. A return to your original frequency. You see, Gemini, one of your gifts is adaptability. But that gift becomes a curse when it turns into performance. When your humor becomes a mask. When your flexibility becomes your cage. The cosmos is now activating an internal threshold, a line you can no longer cross without betraying yourself. And here's the thing, not everyone in your life will applaud this. Some will be confused. Others will be offended. They'll say you've changed. But what they mean is, you're no longer changing for them. Let's talk about James, a Gemini man in his 60s from Minneapolis. A former journalist, he built his entire life on listening, on asking questions, on helping others share their stories. But deep down, he had never told his own. When his wife passed away, something cracked. In the quiet of grief, his voice returned. He started writing, not for a paycheck, but for the truth. And slowly, the people in his life who only knew the listener began to disappear. But those who stayed, they met James for the first time.
This is your moment, Gemini.
To let go of the echo chamber, those circles where your brilliance is only tolerated if it conforms. You are no longer interested in being everyone's mirror. You are seeking people who see you. You may find that conversations dry up. Invitations fade. That friend who always got you doesn't return your calls. But don't rush to fill the silence. Let it speak. Let it clear. Because the emptiness you feel right now is not abandonment. It's preparation. You're being invited into a new frequency of connection, one built on reciprocity, not performance. And to receive that, you must release what was only ever meant for an earlier version of you. Mercury is your ruler, but Uranus is your current initiator. Its influence is dismantling the systems in your life that have become too rigid, too scripted. It's no longer enough to be interesting. You want to be honest. You want people who challenge your thinking without challenging your worth. Who don't just laugh at your jokes, but sit with your silence. Who don't just admire your mind, but respect your boundaries. Let this chapter be messy. Let people misunderstand you. Let them project. But you, don't chase. Don't explain. Don't edit yourself for someone else's comfort anymore. Because here's the truth you've outgrown pretending not to know. The people who are meant to walk with you won't need subtitles. They'll meet you in your wholeness, in your paradox, in your brilliance. And they'll never ask you to choose between your mind and your heart again. So as you feel this shedding, this identity collapse, don't resist.
Breathe. Write. Speak. Cry.
Scream if you must. But above all, stay with yourself. Because you're not losing connection. You're trading counterfeit for real. And you're not alone. The stars are aligning for your truth to rise, and the right people will rise with it. Chapter 3. Mercury's Mirror. When the truth you speak reveals the truth you live. Gemini, your words have always been your wings. You've built bridges with them, cut cords with them, and sometimes hidden behind them. But this chapter isn't about cleverness or wit. It's about congruence, the sacred alignment between what you say and how you live. Under Mercury's current placement, especially as it moves through tense angles with Neptune, you are being asked a soul-deep question. Are you telling the truth, or just a version of it that's easier to hear? You've mastered the art of conversation. But this is a season for confession, not to others, but to yourself. This is when Mercury ceases to be the planet of chatter and becomes the planet of consciousness. Because what you say now creates ripple effects in your life. The universe is listening more closely. So are the people around you. And more importantly, so are you. Let me share about Denise, a Gemini woman in her late 40s from Atlanta. A high school teacher and mother of two, she was known for her insight, her humor, and her ability to always make things okay. But during a Mercury retrograde last year, she began journaling at midnight, tiny confessions she'd never spoken aloud. I'm tired of fixing everything. I want to be held, not needed. She never meant for anyone to read those words. But once they left her pen, they wouldn't go back. She started speaking more honestly in her marriage. She told her friends when she needed space. She even taught her students to identify their feelings, not just their grammar. And slowly, Denise's life rearranged itself around her truth. This is what Mercury is offering you now, Gemini, a mirror. Not just for who you are, but for who you're becoming. You may be called to tell someone the truth you've been avoiding. You may be invited to express a boundary, to end a conversation mid-sentence, or even to sit silently in moments when your old self would have filled the air with jokes or facts. Because silence in this season is not emptiness, it's integrity. And Mercury, the messenger, is no longer interested in how much you know. It wants to know, do you live what you speak? That's why this chapter may feel confronting. Like your own voice is echoing back to you with sharper clarity. The things you've said to comfort others may return to comfort or challenge you. So pay attention to the words you use when no one's watching. The way you talk to yourself in the morning. The stories you repeat at night. They are shaping your future just as much as any decision you make. Mercury is tracing your footsteps now, Gemini. Not to judge you, but to help you realign. Because you are entering a season where the people who remain in your life will not only hear your words, they will expect to see them in your life. This is spiritual maturity. When your intellect bends toward embodiment. When your curiosity turns inward. When your questions aren't about others anymore, they're about you. What beliefs are you still speaking that no longer reflect your lived experience? What truths have you buried under politeness? What desires are you whispering when the world isn't listening? These are the questions Mercury is placing on your altar, and they require reverence. Because, Gemini, the gap between your voice and your values is closing. And that's not a punishment. It's a purification. You are being made whole, word by word. So if the old ways of speaking feel strange now, let them. If your voice trembles as you say something true, that's holy. If you lose people because you stopped saying what they wanted to hear, let them go with grace. You are not here to echo. You are here to embody. And this version of you, the one who's no longer afraid of her own clarity, she's unstoppable. Chapter 4. The Identity Eclipse, letting go of the Gemini you had to be. Gemini, it's time to grieve the self you crafted just to survive. Because that self, the charming one, the agreeable one, the endlessly adaptable one, was never the full story. She was a survival strategy, a constellation of responses designed to protect the parts of you that were too tender to be seen. And now, the stars are saying, you don't need her anymore. This chapter isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering someone ancient, the version of you before the masks, before the edits, before the applause started mattering more than the echo of your own heartbeat. Right now, the cosmic energy surrounding Gemini is operating like an eclipse. Shadows passing over your old identity, revealing the contours of your true face underneath. And though this revelation is liberating, it can feel like loss. That's because it is. You are mourning the comfort of being liked for the wrong reasons. You are releasing the reward of being digestible. You are stepping away from the mirrors that only reflected your performance and stepping toward those who can reflect your presence. Consider Julian, a Gemini in his early 30s living in Los Angeles. An actor, always cast as the funny guy. Everyone loved him, but no one knew him. He played so many roles, even offstage, that he eventually forgot which version was real. Then one day, during a silent meditation retreat, stripped of words, applause, distraction, Julian had a breakdown. Or, as he now calls it, a breakthrough. He realized he had spent his entire life being chosen, but never known. Julian left the retreat and walked into his new life, not louder, but quieter. He turned down roles that didn't align. He started painting, writing poetry, sharing truths that scared him. His circle shrank, but his soul expanded. This is the kind of rebirth awaiting you, Gemini. The planetary pressure you're feeling isn't asking you to become someone else. It's asking you to stop pretending to be who you never were. Mercury, your planetary ruler, is in rare conversation with Chiron, the wounded healer, and what's surfacing is old grief. The times your voice was punished, the moments your curiosity was mocked, the years you made yourself small so others could feel big. And while this hurts, it also heals. Because when you feel those moments again, you don't just remember the pain. You reclaim the power you left behind. You realize you don't have to be everything to everyone. You just have to be real, aligned,
Awake.
Let this be your identity eclipse. Let the old names fall off. Let the personas crumble. Let the applause fade. You are not here to entertain. You are here to embody a new frequency, one where your intelligence is not a performance, but a prayer. Where your duality isn't contradiction, but completion. Where your brilliance no longer hides behind a smile, but pulses boldly through your silence. Because the real Gemini, the healed Gemini, isn't scattered. She's symphonic. She holds multitudes, not because she can't choose, but because she knows how to listen to each voice within her. So, if you're tired of editing yourself, that's good. If you're done trying to be palatable, that's powerful. If you're ready to disappoint people in order to be free, then you're exactly where you're meant to be. This is not a collapse. This is the shedding of your false reflection. And what remains will be holy. Chapter 5. The Sacred Split. When two selves become one. Gemini, the world has often asked you to pick a side. Mind or heart, thought or feeling, logic or intuition. And you've spent years dancing between them, mastering the art of being both. But now, a deeper calling is emerging to merge them. Because you are not two halves in conflict. You are two flames in one lantern. And that lantern, dear Gemini, is about to light the way for others, only if you stop dimming it for their comfort. This final phase of your transformation is not about proving yourself to the world. It's about proving yourself to yourself. Are you ready to live in alignment with the truths you've unearthed? Are you ready to no longer second-guess your inner compass every time someone raises an eyebrow? You are entering what mystics call a soul synthesis, the point in a Gemini's life where fragmentation becomes fusion. The witty voice and the quiet ache, the performer and the pilgrim, the explorer and the anchor, all finally sitting at the same table. This moment has been a long time coming. Mercury, your ruler, is forming a sextile with Saturn, the teacher of karmic maturity. What does that mean? It means your lessons are becoming embodied wisdom. Your voice is no longer just an echo of ideas, it's becoming a channel for divine insight. Think of Laura, a Gemini healer in her 70s from Santa Fe. She spent her youth moving from place to place, relationship to relationship, always searching for the thing that would finally make her feel anchored. One day, during a solar return meditation, she heard the message clear as day. You are not meant to be anchored to places or people. You are the anchor. That changed everything. Laura stopped running. She opened a small studio, offering intuitive writing circles for women over 50. She teaches them what no one ever taught her. That duality isn't a flaw, it's a form of divine intelligence. You're being asked to make that same shift, to stop explaining your contradictions and start embodying your complexity, to stop seeing yourself as fragmented and start realizing you are multifaceted. There is a stillness coming for you, Gemini, but not the stillness of boredom, the stillness of clarity, where the two voices inside of you, the questioner and the knower, begin to speak as one. This stillness won't come from forcing silence. It will come from living in truth. You will begin to notice. People will lean in when you speak now, not because you're louder, but because your words carry weight. Your relationships will feel different too. Some will fall away, not out of malice, but out of mismatch. Others will deepen, becoming sacred mirrors for the new frequency you're holding. And here's something beautiful. You won't need to chase understanding anymore. You will attract resonance. Not by explaining who you are, but by being it. The Gemini archetype is evolving. And you are its living proof. You're not the jester anymore. You're the oracle. Not the one who shifts to fit the world, but the one who speaks and the world shifts around you. So take this final invitation seriously. Speak.
Share. Create. Write. Teach.
Express the truth only you can articulate. Because the moment you stopped trying to be understood, you became undeniable. And that, dear Gemini, is when your true magic begins. The truth you chose is the life you create. Gemini, the path you've walked through these revelations hasn't been easy, but it's been honest. And that makes it sacred. What began as discomfort became awakening. What felt like isolation became discernment. And what looked like loss became alignment. This isn't just a chapter in your life. It's a quantum turning point. You've crossed the threshold from being reactive to being intentional. From scattering your light to directing it. From voicing what's clever to embodying what's true. You've let go of the Gemini others expected and become the Gemini you remember yourself to be. Your duality has become a doorway. You now speak with the wisdom of Mercury and the conviction of Saturn. You see through facades, not with cynicism, but with clarity. You've learned that not everyone is meant to join you in your next evolution. But those who do, they will recognize your frequency instantly. So let me ask you now, what's one truth you've been afraid to live but are finally ready to honor? Let it be your anchor. Let it be your compass. Let it be the sacred cord that ties this transformation to something permanent. And as you step forward into new conversations, new connections, new versions of yourself, know this. You are not leaving anything behind. You are simply no longer carrying what was never yours to begin with. If this message has echoed something real in your spirit, I invite you to like this video, comment with the truth you're claiming, and subscribe to Esoteric Wisdom so you never miss the guidance your soul has been waiting for.
This isn't the end.
It's the emergence. Because now you speak not just to be heard. You speak because your truth has become your home.